Welcome to the Dome Discussions Podcast. Your top source for all things New Orleans Saints. Powered by four voices who live and breathe black and gold. Touchdown! Every hit, every play.
Welcome to the NFL.
Every moment. We've got it covered.
Let's go! Let's go! Go!
What's going on, Who Dat Nation? Appreciate everybody tuning in to the Dome Discussions Podcast, part of Be in the Know Network. I'm Kyle Besson with Canal Street Chronicles.
I'm Nick Jennings with Canal Street Chronicles.
I'm Kaylee Yacarino with the Canal Street Chronicles.
I'm Drew Collings with Who Dat Dish.
All right, and in case you missed it, there has been quite a bit of news in Saints for the Saints this past week since our last episode. First of all, the Saints brought in 27-year-old tight end Noah Fant for a visit. He previously visited with the Cincinnati Bengals, left unsigned, came and visited with us on Friday, still remains unsigned. This could be a big addition to the Saints offense. We know how Kellen Moore likes to use his tight ends. Is there anything that you guys have to say about Noah Fant or how he may add to the team?
Look, it's definitely worth looking into given the retirement of Dallin Holker and Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau still not being yet available. But I did want to touch on something with that later because I know that you wanted to bring up Jawan Johnson a little bit as well, so I'll kind of save it for then.
Yeah, I'm in the same ballpark. I think it's a great addition if it happens, but I definitely want to get in that conversation later.
Yeah, as you said, it'd be great if it happens, but Saints got some fierce competition, so we'll see if they get it. We'll see where Noah Fant wants to go.
All right, and what may be even bigger news, I know a little more heartbreaking for me, Louisiana's son, LSU legend, NFL legend Tyrann Mathieu announced his retirement, shockingly, on training camp eve. And, I mean, to me, this was heartbreaking. I don't know if you guys saw my tweet. Tyrann Mathieu was my GOAT, literal. Like, everybody has their player that they grew up watching. You wanted to be like him. Obviously, I never really played football, but Tyrann Mathieu was the one. I used to go outside, and whenever we played football, try to strip the ball out of my friend's hands, because the honey badger went out there and was always stripping the ball out of hands. Yeah, he retired, and it was shocking, but can't be seen as something that wasn't going to happen. He was getting up there in age, and he recently just had another kid. I believe it was his fifth child. So he just wants to focus on his family. How do you guys feel about the retirement, and what do you think the Saints could do?
I mean, shocking is...
Go ahead.
Shocking is the best word to use in this scenario. I was building a side table 5 minutes before the press conferences of the first training camp day. I know it wasn't actual practice, but the press conferences, and then my phone starts blowing up that Tyrann Mathieu retires. And it was just shocking to see because that's the Saints starting safety. I know they brought in Justin Reed, but that's a big part of the defense. And I know since signing with the Saints, Tyrann Mathieu hasn't been the most athletic player, but he's been pretty consistent. And I just really think it was a shock to many. But if you also saw on this channel that there was a little bit of a short that I did when the breaking news happened, and one of the players that I did talk about that the Saints could possibly look at was former Colts safety Julian Blackmon, who the Saints ended up actually almost signing about 6 hours later and making it official a little bit later in the week. But he was a player that I thought could come to the Saints. He's great at pass rush, blitzing the quarterback. He's great in pass coverage, not the best tackler, and has been dealing with some injuries over the past year, but young enough option. And many people were saying it was an upgrade over Tyrann Mathieu. I don't know about that. Did the safety room get younger? Yes. I don't know if it was an upgrade, but that was one player I thought they could get, and they did get him.
Yeah, look, this is definitely Justin Reed's secondary now. Obviously, they paid him for a reason, so now he's got to put it on for the team. You've got to get your money's worth out of him. But look, I love the signing of Julian Blackmon. He's just 26 years old, was a cornerstone of the Colts secondary for 5 seasons, has 10 interceptions, 9 pass breakups, and 243 tackles in his career. And I actually would argue that he's not an awful run defender. Had 64 stops. That would be huge for the Saints defense that, like I've mentioned before, allowed 4.9 yards per carry in 2024. He's 6'2", 202 pounds, so there's a noticeable size difference when it comes to Tyrann Mathieu. And look, I would also even argue that it is an upgrade. Tyrann Mathieu was on the decline. There's no questioning that. He was 33 years old. He seemed to be getting pushed around a little bit when it came to tackling last season. And that's just not the case when it comes to Julian Blackmon. Julian Blackmon was in connection with the Saints all offseason long, said Kellen Moore. His interception on Jake Haener in the red zone was a great pick. Moore said that him having that interception just a few days after he showed up shows just how much experience he has. And look, I'm really excited to see if he can stay healthy. He's had some injury issues at the end of his tenure in Indianapolis, but if he can stay healthy, I really think this could bolster the Saints defense, even with losing. Because look, obviously, the Honey Badgers' impact on and off the field when it comes to a leadership and teammates perspective is second to none. You're not going to be able to replace that. But on the field, I think the Saints may have done just that.
Similar to what you just said, my biggest reaction to that was, wow, the Saints are losing a lot of leadership off the field. First off, congrats Tyrann Mathieu. Wish him the best in retirement. But the Saints are losing a big locker room piece there. You've still got Cam Jordan. You've still got DeMario Davis. So I'm not worried about it, especially for that secondary. You've got some young players who would have really benefited from Tyrann Mathieu's experience, his leadership, just his teaching. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how they rebound with that. I think Julian Blackmon will be a great player on the field, but it's just that off the field piece I'm a little bit worried about.
Yeah, the Justin Reed move it's a way better signing now than it ever was before, because he is a veteran. He played a lot with Tyrann Mathieu in Kansas City. They played together.
He replaced him in Kansas City.
Yeah, I believe he did replace him, actually. They might have played together in Texans. I think they played somewhere together. But he's a leader, another veteran, another guy who has announced he will take a leader role after Tyrann Mathieu has stepped down and retired. So maybe we're not missing that presence. And, I mean, it all goes back to Tyrann Mathieu taking that pay cut earlier in the offseason. A lot of us thought he was doing it for the signing of Justin Reed, and maybe he was at the time planning on it. But eventually would announce his retirement. It wasn't catching the Saints by surprise. They knew about a week or so beforehand, before the actual announcement came. But yeah, like I said, it's a big loss. I think it's a big loss on the field. I think it's a bigger loss in the locker room. But maybe some of these signings and some of the additions to the team can help cover up what Tyrann Mathieu leaves behind.
And Tyrann Mathieu is a future coach in this NFL or in the NFL. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he's a DB's coach in 4 years. I just see it happening so fast.
And I hope it's with us. I mean, man, keep him in Louisiana, keep him in New Orleans. That's my whole thing with Tyrann Mathieu. I'm glad he came home. If you grew up in New Orleans or a LSU fan or whatever like that, Tyrann Mathieu is one of those. He's one of those ones, motivational. Like I said, he was my idol growing up. So obviously, I was happy to see that he came here, and I'm even happier he retired with us. But to moving into it now, we're going into the first topic of training camp. The quarterback competition has begun. We're 4 days in. Each guy has come out here, all three of them has come out here and shown their positives, and there's been the negatives. It's important to note that there's three of them in this battle. Jake Haener is in this battle. He did get first team reps on Friday, I believe it was. So this is a competition that's seriously being considered for all three of these guys. But in my eyes right now, this is Spencer Rattler's job to lose. I wouldn't solidify and say he's on his way to be QB1, but right now he's put out the best product, and he's between him and Shuck, he is the most seasoned, having over a year with the Saints, obviously. And to me, it's Rattler's job to lose, despite throwing the 2 interceptions over the 4 days.
Yeah, and look, Spencer Rattler has taken the majority of reps during this year's training camp. Started with the ones on the first day of camp. Kellen Moore did mention that it was because he had that year under his belt. And then also started today. He was the number one in today's practice. Like, I agree with you. It is starting to feel like it's his job to lose. He has thrown 2 picks, both to rookies, which I will touch on a little bit later. He's looked sharp. He's looked decisive, and he's had a plethora of big hookups as well. Really building strong connections with guys like Chris Olave, Juwan Johnson, Mason Tipton. He also completed every single pass that he threw on day 3 of training camp. He said that he loves competing. It's a part of the game. He said if you don't want to one up each other's performances, you're probably not built for this. And Kellen Moore even talked about his interception in the red zone, saying it's about how you evaluate and learn from it, and he responded well. He stressed that it's about how you respond to adversity when it comes to these quarterbacks' mistakes. And I'm not taking anything away from Tyler Shuck either. He's looked great as well, even showing off the wheels on some of the new QB designed runs that we've seen during training camp. And Jake Haener as well. He's thrown a lot of touchdowns. I'm not going to lie to you. He's impressing me a little bit. I did not expect this from Jake Haener. He's definitely making a name for himself in this competition. Moore said the QBs just need to trust the process and make really good decisions, get the ball out of their hands, and he thinks they're doing a really good job of that. And lastly, Alontae Taylor also spoke on the quarterback competition, saying those guys are competing. He said the things that he loves most is that they're still friends. There's no trash talking to each other. They get to work every day, taking the reps. They understand that they're all critical, and and dude.
Sorry. Somebody keeps joining in the middle of the call while we're doing it. It's kind of throwing us all off. You go ahead, continue.
He said that they get to work every day. They're taking reps. Spencer and Shuck do know each other. They were quarterbacks in Arizona with each other during high school. Spencer has said that Tyler Shuck's a good dude, so they obviously have a good relationship. It's a really healthy quarterback competition right now. And look, like I said, it is Spencer Rattler's job to lose from the looks of it right now, but I'm not putting any of these guys out of the picture at the moment.
Yeah, I was in complete shock how well Rattler has done. I didn't expect this going into training camp just because of how consistent he was. I think it was on, I might be wrong, it was on day 2 or day 3 of training camp that he did not miss a pass. That's insane.
I believe he went perfect on day 1 as well. I think he was
2 days,
perfect
yeah.
day 1 and day 3.
It was also day 1. See, that's just insane. Like, could that be a little bit about the defense struggling? Maybe. But could that also just be Rattler being very consistent? I also think so. And I'm in complete agreement. This is just lose. And going into this whole process with training camp, it was so neck and neck with Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler because both were being consistent, both were making plays. But while Tyler Shuck's consistency has fallen a bit, Spencer Rattler's consistency has actually gotten better. And that's one of those things that I didn't think I was going to see, but now it's happening. There were some ugly throws with Rattler. The interceptions weren't great. And I know you talked about Kellen Moore's comments about that, but it is important to note that they were not the greatest throw. We're recording this on Sunday, so on day 4 of practice, Spencer Rattler threw a pick to Danny Stutzman, and it was kind of Stutzman was sitting there for a while, and it was kind of thrown to him. It was an ugly throw, in my opinion, at least. So there's still some issues there, but while Spencer Rattler's staying consistent, Shuck is kind of missing throws at times. Yes, some of the players are just dropping throws, which have not looked good on his stats. And I will say Shuck has had the best throw of training camp. I forgot who it was. I think
Jawan Johnson.
Jawan Johnson.
It was scary how good it was. So that is something to know. It might not win you anything, but it's good for the future. I think going into this competition also, my biggest worry, and I've said this on the podcast, was I want to go with Shuck just because the plan is better. But I still think if my quote-unquote 2-year plan for 2027 happens, going with Rattler, seeing what you have with him, and then playing Shuck if you don't have something good there, and then giving Shuck next year, I also like that plan. Back to the beginning, Rattler's doing amazing, and that's really all that matters.
I'm loving this training camp battle right now. It is making everything so interesting, so fun to watch. It's not just normally just get excited for a training camp because football's back. But now we genuinely have something to watch like this. Like, man, preseason's going to be fun. Just to watch these two battle it out against real competition, I think that's 100% where the battle's going to be decided. We're going to look through these next couple of weeks, and it's going to be even. They're both going to have their good performances, both going to have some bad times. That's what you get when you have a young quarterback. I think that's where it's all going to be decided, and I can't wait to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and like you said, I'm excited for preseason. I don't think we'll have a starter named until at least after week 2 of preseason. There's a lot of ball to be played. Obviously, there's a lot more practices to go into this. And we've only seen 4 days, which is the exciting part. We feel like we've seen everything so far. Tyler Shuck has played 4 days in training camps. The pads come on tomorrow or today, the day that's put up. There's a lot that goes on once those pads come on. Your throwing mechanic becomes just a slightly bit different with your shoulders on. These guys are going to hit you a little bit harder just because now they're allowed to do it. So, we've seen Shuck look a little uncomfortable in the pocket before. Maybe we see more of it. Maybe we see less of it because these guys are going to be hitting, like, again, a little bit harder because now they're allowed to. Really, you're not supposed to hit the quarterback at all, but we've seen that not happen already. I do actually want to touch on something real quick just because I feel like it's to mention. Nick, you said it earlier that Kellen Moore said Spencer Rattler got day one snaps because he's the longest vetted quarterback in this competition. That statement's just not true by Kellen Moore. Jake Haener, he's got 3 seasons under his belt. That's the longest vetted quarterback in this roster. So I don't know if there's 2 things that this could mean. It could mean Kellen Moore also doesn't see Haener in this race as well as much as he sees Shucks, but he's going to do his evaluating and check anyways. Or I lost my train of thought. Wow, that's crazy. No, that's actually, I had another thing. Okay. Either way, it could be either from the fact that he doesn't actually see Haener in this competition, or actually, here it is. Maybe he favors Rattler, and that's just the truth coming there, is that he does think Rattler is going to be his quarterback, so that's why he's there, and he just needed to come up with one reason to say why Rattler got snaps over Shuck. We won't know, actually. Probably will never know why that was the case and why Rattler got snaps day one when Haener is actually our longest tenured quarterback. But either way, it is something to note. And before we go into any more quarterbacks, because we're going to talk more Shuck, we're going to talk more Rattler, I need to talk about Haener for a little bit because this is something that we all saw when the quarterbacks came up to press conference. Yes, to me, this is a 2-man battle. This is Shuck or Rattler. Haener is just kind of in here really fighting to stay on the roster, which I think he's done a great job at, by the way. But I think when he showed up to come talk on his press conference, he was mature and he was confident. He stared into the faces of, let's just say, us, the guys that have been saying, Haener, you're not going to be the quarterback, you know that. He stood in front of every media member and said, I know you guys don't think I have a chance, but Kellen Moore isn't going to look at me just to do it, right? Kellen Moore is not going to put me here to feel better. The league don't care how I feel. Kellen Moore put me here because I have a real shot at this quarterback competition and I believe I can win it. And honestly, that's the truth. This league does not care about your feelings. If Kellen Moore didn't think Jake Haener had a shot at this job, he wouldn't fully be in here. Now, again, we did bring up that he was the 3rd quarterback to take snaps when his reasoning why isn't accurate. But it is a sense of, I really appreciate the way Haener was able to first talking about football with him. And this is Nick Underhill actually put out a tweet a while ago. I think it was like, what seat would you sit at a cafeteria table? And Nick Underhill said, I'm not lying, talking football with Jake Haener might be the best person to talk football with. And everybody was clowning him. We saw in that press conference, right? He talked awesome football. Everything he said made sense. It was right. And he carried himself in a way that's very respectable, and I know we see a lot of hate on him on Twitter or whatever, but I would bet that he's on this roster and he doesn't lose his job to Deckers like maybe some of us have thought about or talked about. And I think he's proven in training camp himself as well that he's also playing pretty good. Like Nick said, he's throwing a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely worth noting when it comes to the amount of snaps Rattler is playing and the amount of snaps Haener is getting as well. When Shuck did run with the 3s on training camp day 3, he only got 6 reps during teams and threw just 1 pass. So Jake Haener is getting a clear look here. Like this isn't just for show. He is getting the reps, getting the looks. He's in this battle. And going back to what Caleb was saying on Tyler Shuck, maybe struggling a little bit. He did say that he's not where he wants to be, but he thinks that that's a good thing. He said that they have more ways to grow and that there's a part of Kellen Moore and the staff that do a really good job of putting a lot of their players putting a lot on their plates to be successful. And he also mentioned something we talked about on episode 1 of this podcast. Shouted out Scott Tolzien, Doug Nussmeier, and Taysom Hill as guys with a lot of NFL quarterback experience. That's something, like I said, we've talked about all off season. So they're clearly having an impact on him as well.
Yeah, and going back to the Jake Haener conversation, that type of attitude that he brought in that press conference is very similar to the attitude he brought when Darren Rizzi named him the starter last season. And it was one of the things that the commentary on that game even talked about was that this was a whole different type of attitude that Jake Haener was bringing because, if we all remember, the rookie photo shoot that kind of put all the jokes around him. That's how all the jokes started. And he knew that. He addressed that. I remember, I don't know the exact quote, but I remember them talking about it even on that game, that he felt a way about that because he didn't want to do those poses. And he doesn't, that's not how he is. He's very confident. He knows what he's talking about. So this silliness is not what he wanted to be around his name. So that type of attitude is something we've already seen. And another thing, I don't know if you said it, Nick, in your quotes, but it was Kellen Moore also said something about the QB competition itself. And again, if I'm reiterating it, I apologize. But he said that they're going to let this be a process and not make the decision right away, but they're also not going to wait. And this is something that last year with Dennis Allen, we saw a massive issue with, because Dennis Allen took the second string quarterback competition until Derek Carr was injured and they had to put a quarterback in. That is not how you do a quarterback competition, because either player doesn't know if they're going to be the second string and they're going to have to go in. So they can't prepare for that. Yes, they could kind of prepare for it, but it's not confidence. It's not, I'm going to be that player. That's why I also think that around week 2 of the preseason, after that game, I think a quarterback's going to be named, because there's going to be preparation for week 1.
Yeah, and one of the things I've talked about is, or has been talked about a lot, is I'm glad that all of these quarterbacks are being looked at. Honest, Kellen Moore would be doing himself a disservice if he didn't check Jake Hayner out, see if he's got it in him. You never know. I mean, that's just the fact, is you never know. Jake Hayner could be the best quarterback on this roster. We don't know that. But we will now shout out Jake Hayner, talk about who we think is in the competition, and go more into the Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler part, because that is where we believe the competition is mostly at. And Tyler Shuck, yes, he's had some bad plays, rough plays. A lot of it, I don't even think I would blame on him. Yes, we've seen him get flimsy when the pass rush gets to him, and that's not good to see, especially when you see Spencer Rattler handle it so well. But I too see in Tyler Shuck, this is 4 days in. He shows those immaculate throws we were talking about. That throw to Juwan Johnson, 3 defenders around him, thrown with anticipation and only where Juwan Johnson can get it. That was the best throw to me of training camp so far for the quarterbacks. And it's astounding to see, because that arm talent can't be taught. That's the one thing. I don't think it's crazy for me to go out there and say Tyler Shook has the best arm in the quarterback room right now. I don't think it's crazy to say it's a talented arm. He's got the arm strength. He could really put some zip on that ball, and accuracies are a problem, but you get those accuracies down and you start to have throws like that, and the ability to dare to do it as well. A lot of these rookies will be scared to make a throw like that or whatever, because again, it was thrown with anticipation and there was a lot of traffic there, which a lot of the time could be bad, but Tyler Shuck put it where it was at. But I just think this competition, it's going to be awesome. I can't give you a winner anymore like I did before. Before, out of minicamp and OTAs, I was like, this is a close battle, so I'm just going to have to go with Tyler Shuck because that's the guy they drafted. That was our idea, is like, if it's a close battle, they go with Tyler Shuck. I no longer believe that. I believe they're going to give the better guy the job no matter who it is, and I'm excited to see who it is.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
was just
I
something. I'm
mean, we
sorry.
touched on
Yeah,
everything.
no, we're good. Yeah, we could.
Real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick. I was just gonna say that, like, again, this all comes down to preseason. If again, and Spencer Rattler did really well last preseason, so I don't expect him to struggle. But if Tyler Shuck looks a lot better in preseason, and this is just a scenario where, look, quarterback Caleb Williams, the Chicago Bears, is having a terrible training camp apparently. I'm not confirming that. Like, I'm a Chicago Bear insider, but I've seen a lot of not great things there. And is it Tyson Bagent?
Yeah.
Tyson Bagent is like outplaying him. Yeah, Bagent is outplaying him at times in training camp. So, look, practice is practice for a reason. We know Caleb Williams is a better quarterback in game. And it could just be one of those things that Tyler Shuck might not get that rhythm in camp this year, this year, but it works in game. I also think that I saw one clip on Twitter. It was, again, I forget which practice it was, but it was a red zone drill, and Tyler Shuck threw it at the side of the end zone when he was running out from pressure. Tyler Shuck threw so many throwaway balls in college. That's fine because he's not throwing picks. And although I want him to take some risks I'm totally fine with that play. I saw people not happy with that play, but I'd rather live another down than throw a pick right there. And a lot of talented running backs on the roster. It's close enough to run it for a touchdown. So live another play. I'm okay with Tyler Shuck throwing the ball. I don't see that as a negative. And I still think he wins this battle, but I can, just like Kyle said, I'm nowhere close to that viewpoint from when we were in minicamp. I'm not close. Spencer Rattler has done so well and shocked me.
Yeah, and I believe the play you're bringing up, I believe a lot of people actually didn't know that was a throwaway, and that's kind of why they have a big problem. I'm pretty sure they think that was a bad, accurate ball. To me, that's a throwaway. And actually, kind of want to point out one thing, too. Spencer Rattler set his first interception of camp. That was supposedly a bad throwaway where he just didn't put enough on it. When you watch it back, I could definitely see that. Now, I don't know. He could also be trying to save himself, so I don't know, but it definitely does look like it could be. But with that being said, does any more conversations that we want to have about this QB battle? Anything we want to bring up before we go into trivia? No? All right. Well, let's go into trivia. I'm counting on myself, man. I bet I'm getting it this time. I'm saying that right now. Nick's going to go ahead and name the trivia. Name us our guys. I'm betting I get it. I'm calling it now. You go ahead and give it to
Junior
us.
Galette.
I did recent this time, so
Okay, more recent.
I think you guys.
Then our
Got a
third
chance.
string
Yeah,
quarterback.
more
is
recent.
12. No, I'm kidding.
No.
Drew Brees.
All right. So he started his career with the Buffalo Bills, went to the Philadelphia Eagles, then was with Miami, and then New Orleans.
Linebacker?
Oh, he knows it.
Kiko Alonso.
There you go, brother man. There you go.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Maybe my fault. Maybe I was a little too early. I was hoping it would go a little bit longer. I probably should have held it. I probably should have held it. Right. I probably should have held it.
Maybe.
I wasn't so
Yeah,
sure.
well, I
though.
think you needed it.
I wasn't.
Hold
so
on,
sure,
hold on.
though.
Do you want to do another player?
Do you have another one? You just want to throw one out there?
I'm pulling out the team history. Hold on.
Okay, I guess we're going again.
But I
Okay.
have a player.
I probably
player.
next time
Okay.
I'm gonna hold it, or we should hold that. That's my
Yeah,
fault.
we won't-
I just wasn't sure.
Okay. So, started his career with the Denver Broncos, then Seattle Seahawks, New England Patriots, New Orleans Saints, and then back to the Seahawks.
Okay.
And real quick, before
Say
the
that again.
Seahawks, before the Seahawks, I'll actually clarify. Denver Broncos went to Calgary for a few years, then Seattle Seahawks, New England Patriots, New Orleans Saints, Seahawks.
Okay.
I give years.
Writing it down. So
I have a guess. If you could give the years, I have a guess.
In the first
Okay.
time.
So Broncos 2005,
Oh,
Calgary until 2010, Seahawks until 2013, Patriots 2014, Saints 2015, Seahawks 2016.
nah.
I think I know who it
What
is.
year was the
I'm gonna
Seahawks?
check.
What year was Seahawks?
Seahawks, the first time was 2011 to 2013.
I think.
Is it
I'm with
Max
you.
Second
Unger?
time? No, it's not Max Unger.
Is it a DB?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I got it then. Okay. I'll hold it. Well, I think I got it. Is
Go ahead.
Brandon
There
Browner?
you go.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Least favorite Saints player of all time.
Yeah, I figured once it sounded like, I don't know, when I hear teams I think of DBs, like I think of the position, like it sounds.
No, I do too. I think of DB and running back.
well,
Like when I just hear a team, I'm like, oh, it's running
that's what I'm
back.
saying. Like I'll hear a continuation of teams and I'm like, what's a team that this position sounds like? That's like when I guessed the running back, or when I guessed Travaris Cadet, I was like, this sounds like a running back. I don't know, it just sounds like it.
The Canada. I didn't know he played in Canada.
Did not either.
I
was just shocked.
See why you
I was about to say it makes sense.
All right, to go into our final topic that we feel is gonna take us here for a while, so that's why we're here a little bit early. Training camp is in full-fledged, and there's a lot of things that we're all keeping our eyes on. We all have different interests, what we want to check out, what we want to talk about. I think actually I'm gonna start off this segment just because it kind of dates back to some things we talked about a little bit earlier. So it's what stands out during training camp to us. And for me, there's two players that I actually mentioned in earlier podcasts that I want to see stand out in training camp, and I want to see stand out during the season. We're going to start off Juwan Johnson. Juwan Johnson was my pick for an underrated player going into the season. I just thought Juwan Johnson coming back to the team was significant. They gave him a big enough contract that it seems like his role was to increase. We already heard about Kellen Moore sitting down for hours envisioning how Juwan Johnson would fit in this offense, and then obviously he ends up signing back with us again. And what do you know in training camp? All you hear, every guy's favorite target has been Juwan Johnson. It's a big play happens, and then quarterback responds with a big throw to Juwan Johnson, or just big throw to Juwan Johnson. The Tyler Shuck throw was to Juwan Johnson. I don't know how many touchdowns. I honestly wish I should have went back and got the numbers for you guys, but it feels like Juwan Johnson has been half of these touchdowns, if not more. His name has been called. He's been in a big role. We've seen him play with the first team and second team and make impacts on both sides. He feels like the go-to guy. To me, this is really significant because of that Noah Fant visit. This Noah Fant visit. I know you guys want to talk about that, so honestly, I'll save that for you guys. But Juwan Johnson has been balling. Kellen Moore has a vision for him in this offense, and we are seeing it in front of us. And these quarterbacks are taking advantage of that and utilizing him as a safety net and just honestly maybe as their go-to guy.
Yeah, when looking at my notes, I have 2 touchdowns for Jawan, but a lot of receptions. He had a touchdown from Jay Kaner and a touchdown from Spencer Rattler as well. And obviously that Tyler Shuck, beautiful throw. That connection was awesome from the 2 former college roommates, I might add. But going back to Noah Fant, comparing him to Juwan Johnson the last 3 years, there's not much of a difference, and I'd argue that Juwan Johnson has been better. Juwan's played 46 games. Noah Fant has played 48. Noah Fant had 130 receptions. Juwan Johnson had 129. Juwan Johnson had 1,424 receiving yards. Noah Fant had 1,400. Juwan Johnson also had 9 more touchdowns with 14 compared to Noah Fant's 5. Like I said, both have had their injury issues, playing just 46 and 48 games in 3 years. But still, at the same time, I don't know if it's worth going out and paying, because I guarantee you Noah Fant, a former first-round pick, just 27 years old, it might be a one-year deal, but I guarantee it's going to be a little pricey with what he has to his name. And I just don't know if that's worth it, considering you have a Noah Fant in your room already that might be even a little better than him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a proponent of signing Noah Fant. I think it's less about Juwan Johnson and more about the flexibility he can bring to the offense. Real quick, going with the Juwan Johnson conversation, they are a great comparison, and I think in Noah Fant throughout his career, yards wise, has been a little bit more consistent, getting around that 500-yard mark every year. And he has been in the NFL 1 year longer, and he's 1 year younger. So it's kind of one of those things that he's never fit that first round potential. The Broncos drafted him in the first round. I forget what year it was, but they drafted him in the first round. He never reached that potential, but he still brings something. He still brings the same kind of game Juwan Johnson has, just maybe not with those touchdowns. But I think without having a contested catch wide receiver on the roster, one of either Juwan Johnson and Noah Fant can stick at tight end, while the other one goes kind of that contested catch wide receiver role. Again, Juwan Johnson was formerly a wide receiver. And I think they're both so good at receiving that you can have both of them on the field, and it's so dynamic. Again, it's very important for Kellen Moore to have a vision if Noah Fant is signed. And as you said, the contract needs to be good. If it's too expensive, don't sign Noah Fant. It's fine. And he's going to command a good amount of money because a lot of teams are going to want him. But Kellen Moore needs to have a vision for him, which I do think he would. But this also shouldn't diminish Juwan Johnson's game. As Kyle said, he's been so good in training camp. Touchdowns, receptions, making massive plays. He's the safety blanket for all these young quarterbacks, and that's all you want with a safety blanket. So he's shown everything you want to see in training camp, and he's done much better than I thought he was going to do.
Yeah, and it's definitely worth noting that he mentioned that he feels the best he's ever felt after this many days of training camp under Kellen Moore and new, I can't remember his exact title, but Ted Rath, who was in charge of the rehab processes, the recovery, all the medical stuff. So he's been awesome for the Saints so far, clearly. Another quote from Jawan that really stood out to me is that these are the best locker room vibes that they've had since the Saints started 5-2 with Jameis Winston in 2021 before his injury. So look, Jawan is clearly as happy as we are that he's having such a prominent camp. And that's why I'm not sure that it would be worth bringing in Noah Fant at this point in time, especially because the reason Jawan Johnson is back is because Kellen Moore had an hour-long conversation with him during free agency to kind of persuade him about the role that he has planned out for him, and that might affect that. So I just don't know if it'd be worth it, especially because you've got guys like Jack Stoll and Michael Jacobson who just continue to make plays during training camp. Kellen Moore actually gave some credit to Michael Jacobson as well, saying that he's just always in the right spot. He's just continuously making plays. And look, this might be a little off topic, but Jawan did say this as well when it comes to Kellen Moore, that he showed the Saints clips of the Pacers and the Thunder's championship runs during training camp and OTAs, and said that he particularly pointed out the Pacers' pace and the camaraderie of the Thunder. So that was really cool. That really just stood with me, and I felt it was worth mentioning.
Yeah, and I want to bring
No
up
huddle
one thing.
offense incoming.
I want to bring up one thing about the Noah Fant thing because I have side of a theory. I don't think it'd be considered a theory, but I'm not so sure Noah Fant's actually interested in the Saints. Obviously, we know he met up with the Bengals, and then left without a contract. Met with us, left without a contract. To me, this seems like a free agency move, right? To go tell the Bengals that they offered him more money or something along those lines. Now we know these GMs talk to each other, and they maybe tell him or so. But I believe that was just a move to try to get more money out of the Bengals. I'm not so sure he understands. Like I said, 27, he's not too old, but his role with, and we know how Joe Burrow loves his tight ends, his role with the Bengals could be a bigger thing than what it could be with the Saints because we have our tight end that we're talking about. I think Jawan Johnson is the one, and I said it since that one episode where I was like, Jawan Johnson, because I want to bring up too, before actually, completely off topic, I want to bring up, I really feel like Jawan Johnson had an underrated season that we're not talking about. 550 yards, over 50 receptions. That's a good year. That's for a year where we were like, okay, and now we're going to lose Jawan Johnson. We felt, now to be fair, it feels like he didn't space that out and he would have a big game here, big game there, and we would like to see more consistency over that. But I think Jawan Johnson has been an underrated piece in this offense for a little while, and I've been ringing this bell forever, and I've said it before. This is the year Jawan Johnson breaks out. This is the year Jawan Johnson breaks out. I'm going to put a promise out there that if this is not the year that Jawan Johnson breaks out, I'm going to be done talking about him. But from what he's shown at training camp, how he performed last year, and the momentum that he ended at with last year, I just think this is finally a chance we really get to see Jawan Johnson be a big piece in this offense. And I'm going to bring up that three. I'm sorry. I'm going to let you go because I'm going to kind of change topics. So you go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify that Ted Rath is director of sports science, so I didn't have everybody guessing.
All right, got you. So I want to bring up that the Jawan Johnson, to me, specifically why I think this is such a big thing for him is he's on that 3-year deal. And I'm gonna pivot now from Jawan Johnson to Chase Young because it's another guy that I talked about early in the podcast who I said I want to see Chase Young stand out at training camp. Why? Because he's another guy that the Saints brought in on this 3-year deal. These 3-year deals are kind of like, we haven't seen exactly what we want to see from you yet, but we know you can get there. That's what I feel like they signed Jawan Johnson to, and that's what I feel like they got Chase Young to. These are two guys that I believe are going to be big pieces when the Saints are ready to compete. You're looking down the line when you make a list, when you make a map, a roadmap on how you want to compete. You have like a 3 to 4 year window when you have a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback, and in 2 to 3 years, I'm hoping Chase Young, who will be making $51 million over 3 years, and Jawan Johnson, who's making $30 million over 3 years, are going to be big pieces, and the Saints invested in them early.
Yeah, and a little more on Chase Young. Both him and Granderson have been extremely disruptive in the backfield throughout training camp, both in the pass and the run game, which is definitely encouraging to hear. He said he's playing about 5 to 6 pounds lighter than he did last season, about the same weight he did during his time in San Francisco. Said he also feels that the pass rushers have a lot more freedom in this new role, in this new scheme under Brandon Staley. He said he feels like he's got a lot to prove. He knows what he can do, and it's time to show it. And he's looking forward to getting in pads this upcoming week.
Yeah, I'm going to go back on my comments from last week. I said I wasn't going to get that excited if Chase Young went crazy at practice. Yeah, I'm excited about it. How could you not? As you said, him and Granderson have been so disruptive in the backfield, and I'm going to talk about another player that's been disruptive later. But I just think that the freedom that in this scheme is such a positive thing, and we kind of talked about it last week that Chase Young could be unlocked in this defense, and I think it's going to happen. And could that be 8 sacks? I'll take it. I'll take 8 sacks. I don't need it to be 16. TJ Watt, 8 sacks. Give that to me. I'm fine.
Yeah, and Eric McCoy actually talked about the new defensive scheme that Brandon Staley is running. Said that 5-1 penny front that he is using, which is a nose tackle, 2 defensive ends, 2 edge rushers, 1 linebacker, and 5 defensive backs. He said it's becoming more common in the NFL, but he said it stresses him out anytime he has to see it. And I know when you're lining up against a guy like Chase Young in that role, that's definitely a scary sight to see coming your way. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this pans out.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for. These are 2 guys that I bet are gonna be big pieces of our future, and Kellen Moore must have bet it too, because Kellen Moore must have guessed that too, because he's bringing both these guys on 3-year contracts. He wants them to be a part of our future. And I mean, a timetable, think about Justin Reed, another guy on a 3-year contract. It feels like the Saints have given themselves a window already. And that's over the next 3 years. And I'm guessing, and really in 2 years from now, is when they want to be competing for a Super Bowl. But and on to it, does anybody else have or who are your guys' picks? I don't know who wants to go first here, but who are you guys picking to be that standout for you?
I'm actually looking at some of the rookies. I feel like the rookies have been putting on in training camp. I feel like Danny Stutzman is going to make it extremely hard for the Saints coaches to keep him off the field. The dude can straight up play some football. He's been getting after it in the run game, which we knew was his strength. It's like he's shot out of a cannon, and he reads the field really well. Day one, he was already out there making plays on actually Chris Olave coming out of the backfield, which was interesting to see. But he also picked off Spencer Rattler in the end zone, as Caleb mentioned earlier. He's really looked the part during the early stages of camp, and I'm excited to see how his role enhances throughout the season, especially with Demario Davis getting more rest days throughout the offseason program. Him and Nifai Sewell, who's actually been seeing time with the ones, those guys are going to have a chance to show what they've got. And looking at Quincy Riley, another rookie who stood out, snagged an interception off Spencer Rattler, as Kyle mentioned earlier, the first interception of training camp. And I know I've been very critical of Paulson Adebo during his tenure in New Orleans, but I'm really getting a lot of Paulson Adebo vibes from Quincy Riley when it comes to a ball skill perspective. He really is just a wide receiver on the defensive side of the field. He a ball hawk, and if he can continue making plays, I would not be surprised if he's opposite of Kool-Aid McKinstry this season. And then finally, first round pick Kelvin Banks. Eric McCoy spoke really highly of Banks, said he went number 9 overall for a reason. He's super talented. He said there is obviously some technical things to clean up at the pro level, which is expected coming from a rookie. But he says he thinks you have your guys for the foreseeable future in Taliesin Fuaga and Kelvin Banks. And for one of the best offensive linemen in all of football, in McCoy, to say that about a guy who's yet to take an NFL snap, I feel that's very significant. And I'm really excited to see how Banks puts it all together for his rookie season.
Yeah, and going off of the offensive line, I don't have the exact quote in front of me. I don't know if you have it, Nick, but Kendre Miller talked about the offensive line yesterday and said that they could be one of the best in the NFL. And that's just how the players are feeling, which is unbelievably exciting. Also focusing on Danny Stutzman, I think we all agree that, again, as you said, the run defense is his strength. That's where he's going to show up. That's where he's going to make plays. I kind of diminished the interception earlier. I didn't mean to do it that much. But the fact he still intercepted a ball, I'm not a fan of his pass coverage, but the fact he was there is amazing. And I'll say this up front. I think I said it when we talked about Stutzman the first time. If he can be good in pass coverage, still good in run defense, he literally will be one of the best linebackers in the NFL. It's just you can't have that good of run defense and then also good pass defense and not be one of the best. So little hints here and there I love seeing.
Yeah, absolutely, considering that was one of our biggest worries about Stutz coming into the offseason is his pass coverage. And for him to go ahead and get a pick on the first week of training camp is really encouraging.
Yeah, I want to bring it up just because we've talked about it a lot. We all feel really safe behind this offensive line, and a big part of that is the Saints drafting Kelvin Banks. I know it doesn't mean much coming from Ian Rappaport, but Ian Rappaport did a piece. He uploaded a YouTube video to like 300 views. It didn't get a lot of views, but he recapped the Saints training camp, and he spoke really highly of the offensive line, saying he thinks it's the best unit the Saints had in years, which I think everybody can agree on that, and how that the Saints believe that as well, that this is one of the best offensive lines, not just they had in years, but in the league as we talk. And we've kind of skipped over Trevor Penning. Trevor Penning has struggled in his role as of recently. I mean, again, I would bet so going against David Godchow, Carl Granderson, all these guys who can switch inside, outside. It's probably a hard role for Trevor Penning to learn at going against these guys. But this offensive line feels secure, and I think a lot of that is thanks to Kelvin Banks. I think Kelvin Banks is the best addition that the Saints made this offseason. And for your rookies, your young guy, whoever's going to be your quarterback, having an offensive line that can protect him is going to be the most important part of development for every single player on this roster that's on offense.
Yeah, and real
Kelvin
quick,
Banks wasn't mine. Oh, you.
I was just going to really quick touch on Devon Godchow. Eric McCoy also spoke on him, said that in that run game, he is just an absolute beast. He said that man is a double team eater, which is really encouraging to hear considering, like I mentioned earlier, the Saints struggles on the run defense end last year. I've mentioned all offseason how good that Devon Godchow was for the Patriots when it came to run defense. So that is something I'm really keeping an eye on. And on Taliese Fuaga, McCoy also said he only expects him to get better from here. He thinks the standard goes up, and that's also why he said that he feels like the Saints have their tackle tandem for the foreseeable future.
I was going to say is Kelvin Banks on draft day. He wasn't my number one prospect. He probably wasn't even my top three. But looking back on it, there's no one I would have rather had the Saints take. The offensive line being secure is the biggest thing this year. It opens up the run game. It opens up the pass game, especially with these two young quarterbacks. We need it like that, and I think Kelvin Banks is the perfect piece the Saints could have added.
I was talking about it with someone actually today, and I was saying how I did not want the Saints to go with offensive lineman at 9 because I was why. But now looking back, was there really any other option? Like, it's such a good pick, and it has just unlocked everything. Like, if the offensive line's good, if the defensive line's good, the team's going to be good. The quarterback can be as average as you can, but the team's going to be good. That's amazing.
Yeah. What about you, Caleb? Who's your pick?
Sorry.
I guess it's going right into you.
Yeah. I have two. So starting on offense, wide receiver Mason Tipton has had some days in training camp. So on day 3 was the Mason Tipton day. He had 5 catches only in 7-on-7s. He was making amazing catches throughout the day, adjustments to the ball. He's been making plays throughout training camp. It wasn't just his good days. And even Kellen Moore on day 3 of training camp in the press conference said, and I quote, he's really, really reliable. That's all you want from a UDFA wide receiver. I talked about it, I think it was last week when I finally got to talk about Mason Tipton. I was in on Mason Tipton last year fully. He was my UDFA guy. I thought he was thrown into a role he shouldn't have been thrown to. Too much pressure, all that. I think if Mason Tipton can stay consistent like he has been, and he shows that in preseason games, stays healthy, he makes this roster. He's made a great depth piece. And if one of the starters, Brandon Cooks, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, goes down with an injury, don't want that to happen, Mason Tipton can fit that role. I think he's been great so far in training camp. I love what I saw. And then going and also mentioning, actually, I don't know if we're going to talk about him later, but I'll talk about it at the end. Another to talk about is Brian Brzee, who somehow has not been talked about yet. I have talked about Brian Brzee so much so far because I just wanted him to be consistent in the run defense, making plays, and I hoped that move to the 3-4 defensive end was going to be a good move for his career because we all know how good he is in pass rush. Well, it seems in practice that he is even more dominant in the 3-4 defensive end role. He is absolutely destroying plays. He looks quick and getting right past the offensive lineman. And we're not at practice, so we don't get to see all the plays. But Nick Underhill at New Orleans Stuff Football actually mentioned that Brazil's been blowing up plays in the run game. Do you know how good that is to hear that Brian Brzee is making plays against the run? Look, I want it to be consistent because I'd rather it be consistent than you make a few good plays here and there. But the fact that's even happening shows so much growth with a young player and could easily be the most important player on his defense. So I'm just so what I've seen from Brian Brzee. I hope he stays healthy. I hope it stays consistent, and hope that run defense stays consistent.
Yeah,
Can't wait to see Brian Brzee. You've seen, like, I was looking on social media and I see like people ranking the worst starter on every team. And I see Brian Brzee pop up for the Saints. I don't get it because, and even just in the pass rush the past couple of years, he's been so dynamic. And if he can just put the run game together, he will be an electric player this year. You've seen his going back all the way to his high school tape. You've seen how devastating he can be to opposing teams. You saw in college when he was healthy how good he can be. Just bring that, not even fully, but bring some of that to the NFL, and oh boy, the Saints could be looking good.
I remember seeing Brian Brzee highlights on Instagram, like when I was in my freshman year of high school. Like I've known Brian Brzee for so long. Like so when he was drafted by the Saints, I had so much hope, and I still have hope because there's so much potential there.
And a lot of the things that I've seen, he's been matched up with. That's who it was. I was trying to find the name when I was talking about Trevor Penning earlier. Brian Brzee got matched up with Trevor Penning quite a few times throughout this. Makes perfect sense. And Trevor Penning never had a chance. Now, I can't confirm. Like you said, we're not out there every day seeing this film. I could bet a lot of these plays that Brian Brzee's blowing these plays up could be against Trevor Penning. And obviously, we don't get to say, was this a bad rep by Trevor Penning? Was this a really good rep by Brian Brzee? So that's the unfortunate part about it. But he is dominant, and 100%. I love what you're talking about with the run defense. But he is one of the premier pass rushers on this defense as well. I mean, you were talking about it. Carl Granderson, top 10 in hurries this last season. Chase Young, top 10 in hurries, and I expect him to have a bigger role. That's my whole thing. I think Chase Young is going to be one of the top edge rushers coming out of this next season, is my hope. If he turns a few of those almost sacks into sacks from last season, he would have already been viewed as one of those top edge rushers in the league right now, getting a lot more money. And then you have Brian Brzee from the inside. I know he's playing a D end on this defense, but like I said, that 5-1 that we've been playing, there's just so much possibilities I've done with it, and this is a scary pass rush attack to play against. So yeah, he may have problems on the run defense, and we're not sure how much that's going to change coming into this season, but opposing quarterbacks are going to fear playing the Saints.
Yeah, and Brian Brzee, I believe, was top 10 in sacks among D tackles last season with his 7.5 sacks. He, like you said, Caleb, he mentioned that this year he's just focusing on putting everything together. Once he can add that run game, that run defense to his pass rush abilities, he could be a really dominant player on this defensive line. And look, I really think the Saints addressing the run defense so much this offseason has benefited some of the guys that were already on the Saints roster. The addition of guys like Devon Godge, who's been a veteran in this league, great run defender, that can definitely help Brian Brzee. Even the addition of rookies like Vernon Broughton, who are great at run defense, can help Brian Brzee compete better. I mean, all of that has its own factor. And then going to Mason Tipton, that dude is just a big play threat. Had that 40-yard reception from Spencer Rattler on day 3. He's even looked to have some contested catches as well, which is encouraging since he's not the tallest wide receiver. He really, really reminds me of Lance Moore, being that undrafted free agent. I've mentioned it on the podcast before. He kind of has that prototype. And look, I have no doubt in my mind as of right now that Mason Tipton will be on this 53-man roster, just given how much he has performed in so little time and so consistently. He's really made a strong impression on the new offensive staff.
Real quickly, because as you name the 53-man roster, I'm trying to name people that would take Tipton over, obviously. Have we heard anything about Donovan Peoples-Jones on training camp?
Nope.
I have not heard a word.
Today was the first I heard about bug memes.
Yeah,
I feel like we're just like
today on a touchdown from Jay Kaner.
I think
I've not heard a
I
lot.
think it's been Cedric Wilson. I've heard maybe a couple plays, but I don't think I've heard Donovan Peoples-Jones' name called once during this.
I honestly think it's Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed taking over training camp.
Oh
We haven't
yeah,
even talked about them, but like
It is
they've just been
100%.
dominating. So they've been dominating.
I've seen it too. It was a tweet because Chris Olave has been playing. They're putting all these guys everywhere. So Chris Olave's played in the second team a few times, and he's been the target every single time he's on the second team. Why not throw to Chris Olave? That's how dominant he's been. Yeah, I'm honestly just talking about Mason Tipton, which again I agree. I believe he's part of this roster. I can't tell you whose spot he takes so far, but I'm sitting here thinking haven't heard much of Cedric Wilson. I haven't heard much of Donovan Peoples-Jones. That's just it's my first time even remembering they're on the roster. Obviously, I know they're on the roster, but it's a quiet name. I haven't heard anything about them.
look, honestly, you hope that he doesn't have to replace anyone. Just take his own role from last year and really maximize his potential in that role. He made the 53-man last year as an undrafted free agent with not much time spent in the preseason last year after suffering that injury. Saints are really high on Mason Tipton, and I don't blame them. And then going back to Rashid Shaheed, that's another guy that I have high expectations for this upcoming season. Said he's 100% now. He's worked hard to get to this point after suffering that knee injury last year in one of the last 3 plays of that Falcons loss. That's really frustrating that that's how it happened. But he's good now. He's healthy. He actually said he put on some weight over the offseason to hold up better through contact. He's now at 190 pounds. Says he didn't lose any of his speed. And Kellen Moore is really good at finding a player's superpower, which he mentioned. And he said he's putting them in the best situations to succeed, which is clear given how much attention Rashid Shaheed has been gaining during camp. He also emphasized that at his opening presser upon becoming head coach, that he knows every player has a superpower and he just needs to figure out how to utilize it. So Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave have had prominent roles throughout training camp, and I just expect it to get better from here.
Yeah, it's been amazing to watch Rashid Shaheed so far in training camp. As you kind of said, he put on the weight, but he's making contested catches. He has an expanded route tree. Like Rashid Shaheed is a vital part to this offense. And I know he was before, but it just feels a little bit more now. And I mean, I don't know who's outperforming who just because there's 2 such good wide receivers, but I'm hearing more about Rashid Shaheed than Chris Olave this training camp. It's just play after play, the favorite receiver for each quarterback, and it's just dominating. And it's so fun to watch because also the weight is very noticeable, not speed wise. You see it just in practice every day. So I can't wait for Rashid Shaheed this season.
And I would say probably has the most aura between anybody when we showed the new uniforms. I saw that. I needed to bring up the uniforms eventually, right? I think I need to get the Rashid Shaheed one. That jersey is so tough. I needed to bring up the uniforms eventually and talk about Rashid Shaheed. Helps me do that perfectly. But before that, does anybody want to close in on Mason Tipton or anything before? Okay, go ahead.
I just said you called it. You called the gold uniforms.
Oh yeah, gold uniforms with the black helmets. I was there. All right. Anyways, go on. Drew, with whoever you think is your standout so far.
Okay, I've got Kendre Miller. If you've listened to this podcast at all, you'll know that I am the biggest Devin Neal guy there is. But man, when Kendre Miller's on the field, he just looks different from everyone else. And I believe it was today he had the quote, "I feel normal now, finally. This is the most healthy I've been since I've been in the NFL." If that isn't encouraging, I don't know what is. Finally getting a healthy Kendre Miller. We've seen flashes of him, and when he's on the field, we're like, wow, he looks amazing. He looks like a potential star. And then he always comes down with an injury that's derailing, it's discouraging, all that. But he's just looked so good in the training camp so far. On the drills, he's just moving agilely. He's going smoothly. It's been spectacular. Getting him healthy in a full 2025 season he'd be a perfect running back too for Alvin Kamara. Take some of the pressure off him. Let Kamara be that change of pace back that he should be now that he's 29 years old. I think Kendre Miller is such a crucial part of the Saints offense if he can stay healthy, which right now I'm hopeful. Could be let down, but hopeful right now.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with you that it's just extremely encouraging to hear him say that he's at 100%. He actually said he switched out of number 25 just because he wanted to leave that injury history behind, which I thought was a little funny tidbit there. But another player who has made some adjustments to his offseason workout program, he said he's leaner and he feels great. He's playing between 215 to 218 pounds now. You've seen Carl Granderson and Chase Young go down in weight. You've seen Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave go up in weight. So that's clearly an emphasis the Saints have put on their players this offseason, getting them to the weight that they could play best at, utilize their abilities best at. He said he loves the competition in the running back room as well, which is significant. Another guy who actually looks leaner in the running back room is Cam Akers. He looks like he's shed a little bit of weight. He's looked pretty agile compared to what we've seen from him in the past couple of years. But again, Kendre Miller said he loves the competition in the running back room. He says they're making each other better each day. He said that it's a blessing to have AK and Clyde in the room with him to learn on and lean on them, which is not something we've really heard from Kendre Miller over the early course of his career. He's been with AK for a couple years now, and you've just not really heard that praise. So it looks like Kendre Miller might have had a change in outlook on his career or his stance in the Saints running back room, maybe a little more optimistic, which I think is warranted given the changes that he's had this offseason from a health standpoint. And like you said, Drew, that dude is just a playmaker when he is on the field. So if he can just stay healthy enough to get those reps and show the world what he's got, I have a lot of faith in Kendre Miller this season.
Yeah, and I would say there was a lot of Alvin Kamara praise from Kendre Miller when he was a rookie, but 100% I'm with you guys. He sounds a lot more mature. I think that's the word that best fits it. He's a lot more mature. He's ready. He kind of talks. Some when he's talking, he's like, I love the competition. I'm ready to go into it. It's more mature, and it kind of sounds like he's ready to take that step up himself. Obviously, we know the clear reason here why Kendre Miller is not doing what he's supposed to do. It's not to a lack of talent. That's not it. It's an injury. He can't stay healthy. And we saw it with Kenneth Walker for the Seahawks, another guy. And I sent this tweet out, or I said it, and I was like, I hate when guys who are labeled injury prone end up being injury prone. It kind of sucks because there's nothing that these guys can stop to control these half of the time, torn ACLs or stuff like that. But I don't know what the difference is. But Kendre Miller has to find a way to stay healthy. And I think before we even wrap this podcast up, we're going to actually talk about health and how Kellen Moore has approached this, because that is something that I think we can do quickly and bring tidbits because it's something that's really inspiring. But I hope that everything that Kellen Moore has been doing to approach keeping his players healthier, because this is a team that's been plagued by injuries year after year after year, and we don't even know how good the New Orleans Saints actually are. The 2-0 New Orleans Saints last year, let me just go ahead and do it. Well, that was a great team. That was a great football team. That's not the team that we got at the end of the year. You're never going to get your Week 1 team to be your Week 18 team, but it is a drastic difference of what it is, and Kellen Moore's trying to stop the rapid injuries that the Saints have faced year after year. So we don't know where the Saints actually are just because they haven't been able to stay healthy. Kendre Miller can be a big part of this offense. He runs through the defense so smooth. He does all these drills so smooth. Everything he does is smooth. It's quick. He's full of talent. He just needs to stay healthy.
Yeah, and I think going off of the injury thing that you were saying is several players, I believe Eric McCoy, Jawan Johnson, Kendre Miller, several guys have said this is the best that they felt 4 days into training camp. Kellen Moore has emphasized using their time efficiently. Practices are only running about 30 to 45 minutes, but they're getting a ton done during that time frame. Players have also mentioned the several hour-long breaks that Kellen Moore is giving these players to recover after practice. That's something that we haven't seen in the past. It's really encouraging to see that Kellen Moore is making sure that his guys get to the offseason or get to the season. He's not putting a huge workload on these guys because that's not always what makes you better. What makes you better is using your time efficiently, working on the things that you need to work on, not straining your body. They also went inside today because the temperature threshold was getting unsafe. That's something that we also have not seen from coaches like Dennis Allen, and look, Kellen Moore, when starting his practice today, spoke with the fans, said the heat is good for us. We need the heat. But also having that sense of safety at the same time and knowing when it's a little bit too much, and when you're not going to be able to really get the things done you want to get done, that's huge. And I really am just super happy with I guess you could call it, I don't want to say being conservative because, like I said, they're getting a lot done, but not straining is, I guess, the way I should put it. Not putting all this strain on your players, and splitting the reps too is another big thing for me. Like I mentioned earlier, Tyler Shuck on day 3 only had 6 reps with 1 throw. Maybe that's not the best example given as your rookie quarterback, but still at the same time, you're giving these guys opportunity to rest their bodies while also in these competitions. So I think Kellen Moore has done a great job handling this offseason program.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things with training camp in general, we really have to compare to last year with Dennis Allen, which completely different camps, held differently, and a lot more success this year so far. Day 1 of last year's camp, there was like 7 injuries. It's we've talked about how they're being very conservative. I know conservative, again, not the best word, but conservative with the energy and using that the correct way. But we also talked about that the preparation going into training camp was really good, because last year clearly there wasn't correct preparation, because these players were dropping like flies every day, and it wasn't because of the heat, which is something people always bring up. It wasn't because of the heat. Yes, it could become very dangerous. Heat is one of the most dangerous weather phenomenons in the world. I think it is the most dangerous thing because people underestimate it. It could destroy a body. It could make you very sick. But it's also, heat isn't causing these muscle strains that you don't prepare for all the time. That's something different we've already seen. So I think it's a very positive direction going into the season. And I remember last season, Sean Payton, I forget if it was a shot to the Saints, but Sean Payton at a press conference brought up how, when I'm fairly certain of Sean Payton, if it was a different coach, apologize, but how injuries can be fixed with practice habits, and how the Saints weren't doing that. Like, there was an issue. And because Dennis Allen just kind of took it over and didn't change much, all the bad practice habits just continued, and then injuries started happening. Because how many times have we talked about we haven't talked about in the podcast, but talked about Saints seasons being changed by injuries? It's the same thing if you look at the Pelicans. That's the most cursed team I've ever seen in my life. But I have no doubt that the practice habits are not helping. So this is something that is a massive change. And I will say the Eagles, I have no doubt they have great practice habits. And the Saints just took coaches from the Eagles that know these practice habits and are fixing the Saints fully.
Yeah, and if you remember, when Dennis Allen was fired last year, the first thing Darren Rizzi said was they were going to learn how to practice the right way. And as soon as he did, Todd Grantham was demoted from defensive line coach. Byron Young, I always mix it up. He took over. You clearly saw a huge difference in the way the Saints were running things. It means a lot in your preparation for game week. And also going back to the injuries, so many players have given props to new director of sports science, Ted Rath. I really think that addition was huge for the Saints. Eric McCoy, another guy who said that he spent all offseason long rehabbing his injury with Ted Rath and his team. He's another guy who feels like he's back to 100% after suffering that groin injury in Week 3 against the Eagles last season. He's clearly had an emphasis on the recovery process and the rehab programs that the Saints have set, which is significant for such an injured team in the past.
Yeah, and back to all that, Kendre Miller is going to be great, man. Yeah, I know when talking about Kendre Miller, it's going to become this injury talk, and I wanted to touch up on it because what you said, Nick, is there's so many players who say they feel so much better, and to be fair, to counter that a little bit, I think guys say that every year. That is true. The guys will say, I feel the best I felt my career this year, but I do think there's a lot of meaning behind it. Every time Kellen Moore brings anything up, why is practice an hour, 45 minutes long? Sports science. There's something behind it. This isn't just let's test this out. There is actual statistics behind it, and I think that's going to lead to what Kendre Miller finally being able to run the ball and get out there and play more than 50 snaps, and we can see a lot of attempts, because I think Kendre Miller, outside of Alvin Kamara, I think he's the clear-cut most talented running back in that room outside of Kamara. I don't think this is – I'm sorry, Drew, but I think he's the most clear-cut talented running back.
I'll agree with that.
In the room outside of Alvin Kamara. He's quick. He's just so smooth with everything he does. But he can't stay healthy, and the NFL is full of talent. There's so much talent in the NFL, and yet the best ability to have in the NFL, and it continues to show half the time, is availability. We hear it all the time. And Kendre Miller hasn't been that. I'm waiting for him to do that. I think he's adopted his role well, and I think he's got the mold to be the Saints running back of the future. A rookie contract, the Saints still have time with him, but he needs to prove something this season.
And I'm
And I
assuming
think
we're going to talk
Go
when
ahead.
preseason starts, but Kendrick Miller might be the player I'm watching besides quarterbacks going into preseason, because I don't care about Alvin Kamara going to preseason. I don't want him to play any snaps. We know what we have in Alvin Kamara. Kendrick Miller needs to be the starter, first running back, no matter what. And I want him to get a larger workload in the preseason, because look, if he's going to get injured in the preseason, he's going to get injured in the regular season. That's just what's going to happen. So might as well get the legs under him, get him ready for the regular season. But also, one of the things we kind of haven't noted, or we have not noted yet, is that Kendrick Miller has had some issues picking up blocks, understanding what to do on plays in game. So that's going to be something to watch also, because I still think that the worst thing to happen to Kendrick Miller's career is Dennis Allen. That relationship was never good. It was never set up for him to succeed. It was just a bad situation. And we talked about Jake Haener having the confidence in his press conference, but as Kyle kind of talked about, Kendrick Miller sounded great in his press conference. He had a great press conference. It felt like a new sense of confidence, and I think that is because Dennis Allen is no longer on this team. So if he buys into not making those mistakes in game, if he buys into the training like we talk about, that is the future running back one. I think we can all agree. Kendrick Miller is amazing on the field. It's just if the issues get fixed.
Yeah, and I think that's where the maturity comes into play when it comes to picking up those blocks and kind of accepting your role being that backup. Because obviously, as a third-round pick coming off of a national championship run, you're going to want to have a prominent role in the offense, which is clear. I mean, but you're behind Alvin Kamara at the same time. So you have to be able to accept that role. And like you said, Caleb, if he's going to get injured in the preseason, he's going to get injured in the regular season. So you got to see if he can hold up now. And another thing worth noting is he's reunited with his original running back coach, and Joel Thomas. I'm not sure how his relationship was with, I can't remember. I think it's Derek Forrest or whoever was the Saints running back coach last year. But it clearly has an impact on his optimism for this upcoming season, as Alvin Kamara as well. Alvin Kamara was extremely positive during his interview on day one of training camp. It just seems like the vibes are a lot better around that running back room this time around.
Yeah, and honestly, picking it up, as we close out, Kendrick Miller, like you said, Caleb, with Kendrick Miller and Dennis Allen, there's been a sour relationship there. We heard the stories about him getting put on IR when he didn't need to go put on IR. That's like the craziest story I've seen. I might just go ahead and place a Kendrick Miller parlay upcoming against the Bears. I would love to see a Kendrick Miller torch a Dennis Allen defense. I think I might have to go ahead put a parlay. I don't know. I don't remember what week that is. But I'm going to after this. I'm going to schedule whatever.
I think it's 6, but I could be
I
wrong.
believe it is pretty early in the season.
6 or 7, it's one of the two.
Week 7.
Week 7, yeah. So I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna have it ready for whenever we do our episode before that week's game, because I'm ready to talk about Kendrick Miller, who is hopefully at this time got a role in this offense, and I hope we get it. Now, obviously, I don't think Kellen Moore even knows much about a Kendrick Miller Dennis Allen rivalry. I would love to see a breakout game by Kendrick Miller. I hope Kendrick Miller walks up to Kellen Moore after week 6, be like, hey, let me get 20 carries this week. But with that being said, before we close out, I want to say, does anybody else have any closing statements, anything before we want to head out of here?
I actually do. I want to touch on the special teams a little bit. We've talked about Charlie Smith being maybe a candidate to take over Blake Grupe as the kicker, but it's not looking like that's going to be the case as of now. Blake Grupe is 9-10 through his 2 days. Charlie Smith is 5 of 10. On day 2, missed 3 straight attempts out of his 5 attempts from 40, 47, and 49 yards out. That's just not what you want to see. And then went 3 for 5 today, I believe, with misses from 41 and 46. He was good from 37 with an extra point and from 48. But Groupie kicked in light rain and went 4 or 5, with the fourth one barely fighting through against the wind. Even though I think that's encouraging to see in the rain. And going to the punter battle as well, James Burnup has really been putting on a show. Had back-to-back punts that went for over 5 seconds, 5.15 and 5.22 seconds. That hang time really allows your gunners to get down the field. And look, at the same time, Matthew Hayball has looked better this offseason, adopting that new, more modern style of punting. But James Burnup, he's really intriguing, especially because the Saints have yet to find their, I guess, true franchise punter since the departure of Thomas Morstead. So that's definitely something I'm keeping an eye on. Look, Charlie Smith has a huge leg also. I'm not giving up on him quite yet, but Blake Gruby's been way too consistent to get rid of him now, especially after seeing how this has played out for Smith.
And Groupie's miss is notable, as in it was from the far left hash, 49 yards out, as the rain picked up bad. And of course, like as soon as he missed it, the rain went ahead and calmed down. So Groupie's one miss is in a heavy rain, and I don't know how bad the miss was. Again, not there. I don't see the tape, but going 9 out of 10 in rainy conditions, and your one miss being because the rain really picked up, or at least a way to be excused. I agree with you. I do think this is Groupie's job for the season. I did think Charlie Smith had a fight to go through to even convince us to move on from Groupie, but it has been a rough first 2 kicking sessions for him, and being 50%, and some of these kicks are, I believe he's missed some from the 30 out. Like that's not what you want to see in training camp when this is going on. All right.
Give Justin Reed a look.
Yeah, Justin
And
Reed
start
might have to. Blake Groupie's pretty small. If someone hits him, Justin Reed's kicking for us. All right, but we're closing out now. That is in this episode, a little bit of a longer episode, but we all expected that. There's a lot to talk about, and that's probably going to resume the same way next week. And there's going to be a lot more to talk about next week. We're going to have a lot more practices under us. But before we close out, next Thursday, not Thursday coming up, next Thursday is going to be our first Thursday episode. We are going to preview the Chargers preseason game. It's finally here. We're now going to be putting out 2 episodes a week for every week that there's a game. Happy to do that. I love talking about Saints football. I appreciate you guys tuning in with us. Listen to us talk football, and that's it for this episode.